Glenn Beck is going to give us another great history lesson here. He's going to explain to us how the free market works by using the example of coffee. So let's listen, and then I want to come back and talk about how this segment that he does really explains a key philosophical difference between the left and the right.
You could have Folgers, or you could have Maxwell House, or you could have instant coffee. And when you would go to work, you would have somebody would get up in the morning and they would open up the pot and they would make it just like this. And that's what everybody went to the coffee pot, and everybody had exactly the same cup of coffee. Now, the government will tell you that this is fine, that this is good, but you know differently. And how do I know that? Are we a collective or an individualist society? This is what is in our break room, just around the corner here at the Blaze. And I bet yours is the same way. I mean, this is no big deal. But, you want French vanilla? Or do you like the donut shop coffee? Or maybe you like the caramel coffee? Or I'm from Seattle, Pike Place Roast. You like that one? There's also mocha latte. There's all kinds of different teas. There's the English breakfast tea. There's green tea. Or do you want hot cocoa? Or do you want the Nantucket blend? Which do you want? You could have any of these. Or we could go back to the collectivist and just you can have this really crappy instant coffee, or this one that doesn't, it just has a flavor that everybody kind of tolerates and kind of likes. Or you could have one that you love and brew it 1 cup at a time. This is the free market.
So, look, he's right about one thing, but he's also wrong about another thing. He's right in the sense that, yes, it's true. There's a lot of different areas of society where the free market does well. You know, when it comes to consumer goods, and this is where I might even necessarily part with some people who I would consider to be far left, people who are in the zeitgeist movement, or people who are, actual socialists. But what I say is, yes, there are plenty of areas where the free market does well, usually consumer goods. So if we're talking about, I don't know, whatever kind of bed you want. Do you want a water bed? Do you want a soft bed? Do you want a hard bed? Do you want a bed that massages you and vibrates? When it comes to TVs, you want a flat screen TV? You want an HD TV? You want, I don't know, big screen or whatever. And there are so many different areas where we can apply this. He gives the example of coffee. Another example is video games. You get some fantastic video games from these different private companies. And he's right in the sense that there are many areas where capitalism makes sense as long as it's regulated and as long as you do labor protections and you make sure that it doesn't destroy itself by only caring about greed and being an amoral machine. But he's wrong in the sense that nobody is calling for government coffee. Okay? So he's painting a straw man of the left. Again, maybe there are a handful of people, like in the zeitgeist movement, a tiny, tiny percentage of society that really wants to move towards a genuine communal type of existence, and they want to eventually do away with the idea of private property. But the overwhelming majority of the left is not calling to nationalize every single industry. But on the flip side, and here's where Glenn is exactly wrong, and what he's implying is he does want to privatize everything. See, that's the main thing, man. The world is a complex place. There are plenty of areas where regulated capitalism makes perfect sense, and I do think it leads to the best result because competition works in many instances. But there are other areas where privatization and capitalism sets up a horribly perverse incentive, a for-profit incentive in an area where it's either immoral or it just doesn't make sense and it's too much of a hassle and it doesn't fit well. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So, for example, Glenn Beck, who loves the idea of privatizing everything, do you have any idea how ridiculous society would be if we had private roads? The majority of roads wouldn't get paved. They would be, dirt roads or gravel roads. They'd be fucking terrible. When it snows, nobody would ever clear them because most people wouldn't want to fucking go through the hassle of, cleaning up their few mile long road. They'd just be like, fuck it, I don't want to do it. Or could you imagine turning every road you turn onto, they charge you? Make a left on I don't know, Maple Street right there. That would be $7.27, please. A toll booth at every turn you make. Well, that's what happens if you have private roads. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid area to privatize. How about police? You know, if you have private police, it would be a disaster because what would happen? The only people who would pay for the police to exist are the people who can afford them, which would be the rich. So then you'd have an even worse scenario with the police where their only mission is to protect the rich and the people with property. So if there's a murder in a poor community where nobody paid the police, they'd be like, fuck it, you didn't pay us, so we're not going to help you. That's a horrible area to have privatization. I mean, we can go on and on. The military. I mean, it's been known throughout history that when you have private militaries, those are mercenary armies. You know what that means? It would be, we'd live in a country with warring factions of warlords. Okay? Kentucky could invade Nebraska. And they'd just be like, wait, what do you mean? A rich guy in Kentucky has his own army, so he wanted to take the property of the guy next door, so we invaded. Private armies, it's a horrible idea. You put a profit motive behind killing people. You know? Prisons. Why would you want to incentivize more people to be locked up? If you make it a for-profit industry, if you privatize it, you're incentivizing more things to be illegal so you can lock up more people and make more money. Healthcare. You know, the idea that health insurance, that they can make money by denying people care, which is exactly what it is. They're going to try to weasel their way out of paying out on their claims because that's the way you set up the system if it's capitalism in that respect. You know, again, I have no problem with capitalism when it comes to DVDs or music or cars. I mean, in fact, history has shown it just works better when you have some form of regulated form of capitalism for certain industries. The perfect example, again, is cars, because if you looked at the cars that were made in Soviet Russia, where there was no capitalism, there was no competition, they were pieces of shit. So the world is a complex place. It's a nuanced place. And what the left today says is, okay, look, we're reasonable. Some things will have regulated capitalism and competition where it makes sense. And other places, yes, you have government. Some things are just key functions of government that the marketplace has shown it's too greedy to have. So we are the reasonable ones that have the all of the above policy, okay? Glenn Beck and the right, they are the unreasonable ones in 2014, because as we've seen now with all the people that run for president on the right, all the right-wing media figures, they're in favor of privatizing absolutely everything.